Yo! Video games.
What up, dudes, and welcome back to the YoVideogames podcast. I'm Matt.
And I'm Andrew.
And once again, thank you to all our generous patrons who kept us going for over 340 episodes.
Yeah, if you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogamespodcast. Dude of the week is Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. And we also have a super sexy sponsor to thank. As everyone probably knows by now, we are sponsored by Manscaped, and they're the perfect sponsor for this time of year, at least if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. All of our Aussies and Argentinians are probably like, I'm not going to shave my balls. It's freezing out. I want to keep them.
Yeah, but even in the cold, it always helps to have a nice, clean, trimmed pair of nuts.
Yeah, you want to take care of it. And again, for the Northern Hemisphere, especially for those of us in California where it's like 100 degrees every day right now, the Ultra Smooth package is that business right now. Get rid of all that excess hair, stop sweating, stop creating swamp ass, and you're going to be a happy camper. But on top of that, right now, you can get the Boxers 2.0, which, maybe you don't want to go down to the nub on your nubs. But the Boxers are a good way to keep it all fresh, breathable down there. They're super soft.
Yeah.
Super breathable.
It's universal. This is like, hey, I don't want to do anything. But you want to be comfortable, right? So
I want to lounge. I want to lounge about. They've become my lounge about boxers. And so I don't know if you have this. This might be sort of a nutty thing. Do you have pajama boxers?
I have boxers.
Boxers you prefer to sleep in versus boxers you will like.
Yeah, the Manscaped ones.
Yeah, I wear the Manscaped ones to sleep in. Like I'm not going to wear like pajama pants in the middle of summer.
One of the best things about the Manscaped boxers is that you get any boxer or briefs or whatever, right? And maybe there's a little peekaboo hole for your dick to stick out, and for that midnight piss session, but it's just like sewn straight on, right? With the Manscaped boxes, you got a little pouch. It actually a little pocket. It is designed to give
hammock.
your nuts, a little, your hammock and a little hammock to give your nuts and your Johnson, some room to breathe, right? So it's actually really comfortable. You don't get that sort of like, your nuts kind of like crawling up on each other, or like, one, hanging low on the other.
Your nuts crawl up on each other, huh?
I mean, have you ever sat wrong, right? And
oh my God.
Your nuts are like squishing
So in high school one time, every kid in high school wants to be cool, nonchalant. We just don't want to care. I don't care that I'm here. I went to slide into my chair all super smooth and clipped my nuts on the edge of the, like my nuts had sank back. I didn't have a pocket in my boxers. Sank back between my legs, and as I slid into the chair, it just clipped one of my nuts real hard between my legs and the chair. Oh my God, I almost threw up in the middle of English class. It was so bad. And I cried out. So everybody turned to look at me. I was like, I had to do one of those, wait. It's out of my nuts. It's so bad. It's the fucking worst. But you can avoid that with the Boxers 2.0. And you want to check those out, go over to manscaped.com. Use our code YoVG, all caps, for 20% off and free shipping worldwide. That's YoVG, all caps, 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you.
Definitely will. Mine thank me.
I thank your balls every day. So it's your birthday. It was your birthday yesterday.
It was my birthday.
It was your birthday, and I had an idea for... You weren't expecting it. You were all like, Andrew doesn't have an idea for my birthday episode. He ain't got shit.
I didn't even think of it being a birthday episode because I was like, oh, birthday over, whatever. Like,
birthday over, age. Sad now.
Yeah, exactly. Birthday over, sad now.
But I want to know. I want to know what your top birthday games, the games you got for a birthday. Like it could be 5. We could say 5. That'll fill things up. But your top games that you were given for your birthday that was just like, oh, this is the best shit ever. I'd like to know that.
to preface that, I actually didn't get a lot of games for my birthday. Most of my video game gifts came at Christmas. Most of the time they
Well,
were
you were in
from
the
an
dead
aunt.
zone.
They're from an aunt or from a grandparent, because basically my parents were not really super thrilled that I was such a gamer.
Yeah.
So they kind of avoided doing video game stuff as much as possible on my birthday. Hell, even Christmas, really. But like, I mean, they would reluctantly give in a little bit. So, yeah, I have a list here, and some of it's so. And with that being said, I wanted to preface by saying, like, look, like birthdays weren't really like gifts, video game gift time necessarily. It happened, but so there's going to be some stretches here, right?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Um,
July for most of our lives was not the time when good games came out.
there's and
There were good
I
games,
mean,
but it's just like
th-
July's the dead zone.
I mean, okay, so this month is an outlier for me, but it's like generally speaking, yeah, July, you don't get a lot of like banger game releases in July usually. Um,
I
so
I so before we jump in, by the way, uh, I was sort of just giving a thought to this, and I was like, oh, what was like the craziest year? And I jotted down a couple of different years, but let me tell you, my 2004 birthday, I got a couple of gift cards, and I had all like certain games had come out beforehand. And so 2004 was the year that like I had like allowance money saved up. I fucked shit
mm,
up. Let me tell you the games that came out in 2004. Uh Around my birthday, before my birthday, so that I got them before, but like, or a little bit after birthday, so I got them
yeah,
with gift cards. Fable, Halo 2, Doom 3, GTA San Andreas, Half-Life 2, Far Cry, Snake Eater, and Red Dead Redemption. Or Red Dead Revolver, rather.
Revolver.
Yeah. I got all of those games around my birthday. Some of those came out in like November after, and I used gift cards and like stuff like that. But like those,
All of them? Jesus
that
Christ,
fucking
dude.
2004 was kick ass. Not all of
Damn.
them. Not all of them were gifts for my birthday. Like I had like gift cards, and I had saved up allowance and shit like that. Like I had saved up because
Yeah.
normal years, there'd be like 2 games I'd give a shit about. Like I'd really
Yeah.
care about. That year though, just so much shit. And technically, 3 of those games my brother got for his birthday, but we basically like pooled money to make that
You
happen.
pooled money. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
we were not rolling in it. I don't want to paint a picture like we were
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
killing it growing up, but like we had a great year. Oh, and I bought Doom 3 used.
That's fine.
I don't regret it. Doom 3, I still like Doom 3. I don't, people talk shit about Doom 3, but
It's the survival horror Doom. You know,
yeah.
it's fine. You can. I mean,
Oh,
maybe it's not the arcadey fast paced Doom that people like for them, but it's fine to have. They had their sort of like try something
I
new
thought it was a great
moment.
entry, and if you don't, fuck you. Does that seem fair?
I mean, it's funny because like I feel like it's such a beaten or dead horse. I'm like, that game's like 20-year old, dude. Like most people may not even know the meme of the Doom 3 flashlight mod anymore.
Yeah,
The
that's
duct
true.
tape flashlight. Like no, seriously, like there's probably a lot of people who don't remember that time, that sort of that meme, if you
Yeah,
will.
I guess that's fair.
Because it's actually that old now, so it's
Oh, also, and then right away, 2005. I think it was like January 2005. RE4 came out.
yes. Yes, it did. It was like
That
January
4 month
10th or
period,
something.
a 4 month period in hindsight was like the sickest shit.
Yeah. And it's funny how Resident Evil 4 was better than all those games you just listed.
part of
All
me
of
wants
them.
part of me wants to like argue with you
Oh,
just for the
yeah,
sake of
yeah.
argument, but I know it's true.
Tell me I'm
Deep in my
wrong.
heart. Deep in
All
my
of
heart.
those games, all those classic, like, uh,
Halo 2's pretty
all
up
time.
there. Snake Eater's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. Well, then that's where I was getting at. I'm like, yeah, yes, even Snake Eater. Yes, RE4 is better than Snake Eater. I'll
Ooh.
fucking, and definitely better than vanilla Snake Eater.
I mean, RE4 is probably the best game of all time. So I'm just gonna let it be. but part of me wants to argue with you because I had an idyllic 4 month period.
Oh,
Well,
sure,
really
yeah.
6 month period because I played. I think the original GameCube version I beat 14 or 15 times of RE4, and then I didn't touch it again for like, well, until I started streaming, and then I beat it another 2 times streaming.
I mean, that's a lot of time
That's
still.
a lot of fucking times.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me. There are because time's so weird, especially as you get older and things get faster or whatever. But like, there's looking back, there's like chunks of time where, holy shit, a lot of games came out really close together, like
Oh
that
yeah,
you
amazing
don't
games.
think about. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but humor me if you will.
Well,
Um,
it's your birthday. I'll let it happen.
Uh, Basically, I wanted to point out um, this release schedule of I know this is an emergency, right? I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I barely heard it.
Anyways, I would like to take some time to tell you to just here is here is 6 months of releases, okay, of the Sega Dreamcast, okay,
Ooh,
6 months of game releases for the Sega
in
Dreamcast.
2003, 2002.
Um, year in the year 2000.
Oh, it would have been the year
Uh,
2000. What was the? There was one epic year, and then
for Dreamcast, it was 2000.
yeah,
So this
so
is
people forgot
this
about
happened in 6 months on Dreamcast. You got Industrial Spy, Operating System, whatever. Space Channel 5, Nightmare Creatures 2, Super Magnetic Neo, Street Fighter 3, Double Impact, Omicron, The Nomad Soul. Okay, whatever. Mr. Driller, Wacky Races, Evolution 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 2,
it. Ooh,
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Toy Story 2, Test Drive V Rally, Virtua Tennis, Fur Fighters for some people, World Series Baseball 2K1, Giga Wing. Um, I'm skipping some now. Seaman, Sega Marine Fishing, D2, Power Stone 2,
fucking C
Sega
man.
GT, Arrow Wings 2, Tokyo Extreme Racer 2, San Francisco Rush 2049, NFL
Yes.
2K1 online, one of the earliest online games, Echo the Dolphin, Defender of the Future for Dreamcast, NFL Blitz 2001, um, Spawn in the Demon's Hand, Street Fighter 3, Third Strike, Samba de Amigo, Jedi Power Battles, Quake 3 Arena, Demolition Racer, No Exit, Ready to Rumble Round 2, Silent Scope, Spec Ops 2, Kiss
That's,
Psycho Circus for someone, Army Men, Sarge's Heroes, Jet Set Radio,
I played the
Tony
shit out
Hawk,
of Sarge's Heroes.
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, yes, within 6 months, Shenmue, Capcom vs. SNK, Skies of Arcadia,
My God.
Test Drive Le Mans, Cannon Spike, Dino Crisis on Dreamcast, Resident Evil 3 on Dreamcast, Gunbird 2, Tomb Raider Chronicles, Star Wars Demolition, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, Rogue Spear, uh, and Grandia 2, Resident Evil 2 on Dreamcast.
This is all in one 6 month period.
Yes,
This is amazing.
yeah, Evil Dead, Hail to the King. Metropolis Street Racer, The Typing of the Dead.
And somehow Dreamcast didn't make it.
Okay, Typing of the Dead. I cheated. That's actually crossing over into the next month. But within 1 month later, if we went 1 month later, you can add Fantasy Star Online and Typing of the Dead to that.
Damn.
So that is
How
six. That is 6 months of Sega Dreamcast.
did it fail?
To reiterate, in 6 months, in a 6 months block, you had Space Channel 5, Marvel's Capcom 2, Capcom vs. SNK, Street Fighter 3, Trilogy, all three of them, Samba de Amigo, Skies of Arcadia, Grandia 2, all of that within a 6 months period. It was back to back to back to back. So there are moments in time where it's just like all these classic games, a bunch of them actually all came out at the same time. So
Well, I think
um,
the next year after 2004, I mean 2005 had a few, like maybe 4 or 5 games that I really like. Oh hell yeah! But I think the next one, what, 2017 is the next year that really like
Oh, 2017 is one of the best years
of all time.
Yeah, like definitely. It's not 1998, but it's close. So
Amazing.
1998, I would still argue is the best video game year of all time. Um, but
Is one of your birthday games from 1998?
let me see here. Yes.
Nice. All right, jump into it. Let's do it.
So I'm gonna start off with a little bit different, not a game, but a system. And that is the Sega Nomad. And it goes back to a lot of what you were saying, where there was a point in time, and it was pretty much with the first big one was the Sega Nomad, where I kind of realized how much better it was to save up money, like allowance, because I had like, was it weekly allowance, but it
Yeah.
really was really small, right?
Yeah, it's never. I don't know now. I don't know if kids now get like killer allowances, but like it took me, I don't know, a year to save up enough to buy a game,
Yeah,
maybe two. I mean, it was
and even got to the point
nuts.
where it was like parents would just stop, like but my allowance turned into a credit system, um, rather than just like, we weren't like,
Oh,
it was poor anyways. And I told my parents like, I'm saving up for this. So like, you don't even have to bother giving me the money. You could just you know
just buy me that at the
let.
appropriate time.
So, but anyways, like I came to a moment in the mid to late '90s where I kind of realized like the sort of uselessness of buying instant gratitude shit, where it was like, oh, you spend it on candy, you spend it on like a small toy or something like that or whatever, and it's like it's not worth it. Like you buy it and like it's so I kind of like I started having this mindset of like, what's the point? I didn't want small things anymore. I didn't want,
Yeah,
I didn't want to burn the money on something that's going to be like instant gratification, but like ultimately not something you're going to enjoy very long. So I became this very much this save mentality. And I saw this thing because with our Toys R Us, at one point the video game stuff was right smack ass dab in the middle of the store, like right dead center, and a lot of it was in glass cases and stuff.
yeah.
So this is post where they just had like these walls, like these like poster racks, like skinny poster racks where you take a paper slip up and you take that to the front. This is after that period and before R Zone, which was like their big initiative after the N64 era to make like a whole dedicated video game section. I mean, they had a video game section, but R Zone was like their branding.
Yeah.
Before R Zone, so it's post paper slip tickets and pre R Zone. So you had this dead ass center of the store where it was kind of like wide open, and they had like glass cases in the middle of this square, and that's where you would see just like game systems like on display. And then in the corners of this square, you would have demo stations for different video game systems, that you could play stuff. And then they just had like kind of like Best Buy style racks, around the perimeter of this inner square. But it was very open. And I remember one time we were in there for whatever reason, and I saw the Nomad. I saw the Sega Nomad in the glass case, and I was like enamored with it. I was like,
Yes.
a portable Gen, because I always wanted a Genesis. I wanted a Genesis from like 1990 on, and I never could get it. And I would have,
Because it was the cool guy system.
yeah, and I would have dreams of getting it, and then I wake up and I would literally like jump on my bed, stomping it like fuck, or smashing my pillow like, god damn it, it's not real.
When we
But
got
then I
our
saw,
when we got our Genesis, we got that big plastic. They made like a plastic carrying case so you could carry all the games in.
yeah,
We
it
got
was
that.
like really hard to like gritty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big as hell.
So yeah, it looked like something out of a spy movie or something.
Yeah, like you weren't. It wasn't carrying it. You weren't taking that shit anywhere.
Anywhere. Yeah. So I saw this Sega Nomad, and this is like, if I remember right, it was around, I think it was 96, I believe. I'm actually going to double check because, it's pretty well documented. No, maybe it was late. No, it was 96. It came out in October 95, but it was around 96, somewhere around the spring of 1996. And I saw this Sega Nomad on this display case, and I thought, holy shit. And I was enamored with the damn thing because I was like, that's so cool, right? Like, oh my god, like, because I'm like, Game Gears were, I thought Game Gear was cool, but like, it was obvious that Game Gear games weren't, the same quality as a Genesis game.
Yeah, no,
Um,
Game Gear was the N-Gage of that of that era.
that bad. Game Gear was cool, but like, and there
Mm.
actually is like a lot of like hidden gems on it, I guess. But like, I was like, how, like, because this was a time when like every game one had 4 or 5 different releases: Genesis, Super NES, Game Boy, Game Gear, and then like a Sega CD version or something. And I was like, wow, a Genesis is like, and I thought it was the coolest thing because it's like, okay, I could get it. It would be a Genesis, and it would be a new portable, and I'm like, that's even better. That's even better than just getting like a new Game Boy or Game Boy Pocket or whatever. So, but it was a little more expensive. It was on the expensive end. I think it was like $180 or something at launch.
I had a
Maybe
neighbor that
more.
had the white one.
Of a Nomad.
Yeah, I think it was
Then
like the
he
Nomad
modified
X
it
or
or
something.
something.
Or
He
that
got a new
was
casing somehow on it, I guess. But so yeah, it was like close to $200 or something like that. And I sat there and I calculated it, and I basically looked at it, and I said it's going to take me at least a year, at least one full year of saving allowance to afford this. And so that's what I did. Is I saved up, I was diligent about it, and I did, all the chores for a whole year, not spending a cent of any of my allowance for one whole year so I could go afford the Sega Nomad. So in the gift part of this, because it's like, that's not a gift, you bought it. I'm like, yes, true. But we got to the point, and I remember there was basically I was shy. Like, if I remember correctly, when I got to it, if you add tax plus what I was short, it was about $40.
oof.
Um, I think sounds
Oh.
about right, somewhere around there. I think because I think I got to about 160 or something, something like that.
In 90s money? Fucking
Yes,
rolling in it.
we're all rolling in it. Like, but it was like a whole year. It's just, and I would actually do deals. And here's the other thing: I would go work like neighbors' yards and stuff.
Oh, dude,
Like
the best
landscaping and
child
stuff.
labor I ever got was we had a neighbor that was a roofer, and so I got paid $5 an hour to just like take the trash. They would, instead of having to like come and lose a worker to move the trash, the roofing trash, to the dumpster out on the street. That's all I did. I just spent a few summer days just like running back and forth roofing trash, like roofing tiles and shit. They gave me big old
Nice.
beefy leather gloves. Yeah, it was good. It's good child labor
You make
times.
money. Good and let child labor laws. Teddy Roosevelt rolling in his grave. Um, so
It's
so yeah,
beautiful.
I saved up, and the gift part was like, I'm gonna cover. Mom's like, I'll cover tax, whatever else you owe left on it, and so I got a Sega Nomad, and it was kind of nice at the time because it was like everyone was looking at it. This was like '97, I think, at this point. And it was kind of nice to see people who kind of just like, oblivious, because like oblivious to like, oh, I'm saving up for this, and like, what, okay, whatever, and then people saw it when I brought it home, and they're like, and there was sort of like this sort of like,
Oh shit,
head
that's
over
good.
shoulders, like, oh shit, that's actually, oh, that's actually pretty cool.
It was also a
um
time where cargo pants were much more acceptable, and so you could actually carry it in a pocket.
oh yeah, for sure. So it was kind of nice to see like my brother and like other people's like heads kind of like peeking, like, holy shit. And I remember there's a time in the next story, where we had rented an N64 that birthday, like a rental.
Oh
And,
yeah.
while we were taking turns, my brother would like, he was just sitting there playing the Nomad, while I was playing N64. And I remember like, he's like, this thing is actually really cool. Like he was just like super impressed by this. And it's like, it was kind of nice to get like sort of like a justification. Like, yeah, that's why I saved up a whole fucking year for this thing.
Yeah,
Um,
stupid. That's why I got it. Fucking doofus.
so, but yeah, like everyone was super oblivious to them, and it flew under most people's radars, anyways. Um, but yeah, that actually adds up to sort of the next. It was a gift, but it wasn't permanent. But it was, my parents went out of their way in '97 to rent an N64 from Blockbuster. The problem is every Blockbuster wanted you to put the full cost of the system down. So like they wanted you to give them $200,
As
you
a
know,
security
a
deposit.
security deposit. And my parents were like, "Fuck that."
Yeah.
That's not happening. But there was one Blockbuster that didn't care about that, and they let them just rent it for like $16. So we would always go to that Blockbuster, uh, and I remember there was before this we found out the real way we found out was that like I got a second. People think this is weird, but it can happen because there's different strains in the world. I got a second strain of I believe it was chickenpox, or I mean it was chickenpox. I got a second strain of chickenpox later in life. I got one when I was about 4 or 5, and then I
Yeah,
got
the
one when I was
normal.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and then I got one when I was like 10-ish or something.
Isn't
So I
that
got a second.
super dangerous? Like you could die if you get chickenpox again?
Yeah, you die. Well, like as adults, it can get really bad. I don't know. Anyways, it wasn't like a massive severe out. I wasn't close to being dead or whatever, but I was like isolated, right?
But you got to stay home and play N64.
Well, yeah. Well, the chickenpox thing was something like it was like a Genesis or something. Um, and I remember, driving around with my mom to like, trying all the different stores. And then like I just sort of like begged her. I'm like, come on, let me just try one more. And she was, and it was like because we'd been to all these Blockbusters, and I'm just sitting in the back seat, just like kind of like, just blah,
Yeah.
right. And then we go to this one last tinier like Blockbuster, and then I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like taking a while. I'm like, oh god, is she looking at like rom coms or something in there? And then I see her walking out of the store with that big fucking giant plastic
Yes.
briefcase. And it was like a Genesis. She just like throws her hands up like, I don't know, but they didn't.
That's got to be top 10 moments of all time as a kid. The apartment complex that we grew up in, there was like a little video store across the street, and it was run by this really nice dude who just like didn't understand games in general. And so the way he knew what games to like buy to rent out is he would just ask the neighborhood kids what games that they wanted to play,
Yeah.
basically. And so we had rented, I want to say we rented a original Xbox, we rented the original Xbox long before we ever got one. And we had done that, and he had like bought like 3 games that like basically every kid that came in, he was just like, hey, what are the games that you want? Write it down on a list. And he compiled sort of like the most asked for games, and that's what he had to rent. But if you rented the system, you basically could rent all the games for it for an additional, I don't know, 15 or 20 bucks. It was like super amazing deal because it was a hole in the wall place. Yeah, so like half the games I played growing up were like little 3-day rentals, over the weekend for $5.
If you got good enough, that's all you needed.
Yeah, it's great. Or if you really loved the game, then you turned around and went and bought it. Like I think that's what my brother did with Final Fantasy VII. Rented it, played it for the weekend, and then was like, "Nah, I'm getting it," and went and bought it.
Nice.
That's the best thing about hole in the wall places, and it's actually I miss.
Did he buy it from the hole in the wall place itself?
No. He went and bought it. But that hole in the wall place, we bought used games from him. Basically, if he had it for a year and people had stopped renting it, he would, if it hadn't made all of its money back, he'd sell it to you whatever the remainder of it was, which sometimes would be like $5. Or if it had made the money, it just wasn't getting. He would sell it to you for the price of like renting it twice, which would be like $10. Dude was great. Hole in the wall video rental and game rental places, the best. Just like I have nothing but great memories of like summer days where it's just like you just go over to the rental place and rent a movie for the day and like buy soda or whatever at the liquor store next to it and come home, and that was like an event for the summer day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great times.
So like yeah, and following up
now
with
the
this
world's
thing.
shit.
Yeah. With following up with this, we rented an N64, same deal, same whatever, and the game is Super Mario 64 because we rented it with Mario 64 and Shadows of the Empire.
Ooh.
Because my brother had sort of like whined and basically like muscled his way in on the gift, saying like, "Come on, it's not fair. You let me have a get into it." So it was like, okay, and then when it was Shadows of the Empire, I was like, all right, Shadows of the Empire, that's cool. I was like afraid I was afraid he was gonna like, give me a quarterback club. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking watch you play quarterback club for hours on my birthday.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the type of shit that happens. It's your birthday and like kid gets MLB or something, fucking plays that the
Yeah.
entire time. No,
Yeah.
no, thank you.
But yeah, it was Super Mario 64 as a gift, as a gift rental, I should say. The gift was the rental part. Anyways, it was my longest session I've ever sat and just fucking played a video game. I have my one of my oldest friends as a witness too, and we played that thing for 22.
I'm sorry.
22 hours.
You played
At one point.
Mario for 22 hours straight.
Yeah, there was this
Explains a
block
lot.
of time where I was just like,
That's insane.
I was like, what? They're like, because it hit me like afterwards, because we're coming to the end, and I'm like, holy fuck, what have I done?
I mean, just that's terrifying. The amount of Mario impressions you must have been doing after that.
just like, yeah, I remember when like it was because it was like evening, and then it rolled around, and we played all night, and then in the morning, and then like evening was rolling on the second day, and I was like, wait a minute, holy shit!
Well, that's why your parents didn't want you to play fucking video games so much.
Well, I mean, it's very much
head.
a sort of like, well, here's the thing. It's kind of like you're the architect of your own apocalypse, because you tried to like constrict and constrain and try to lock away and hold back and clamp down, and then boom, like then when they get a hold of it, it's like, what do? Like they explode, on it. So, which is why it's not really ever good to like, because I mean that's a video game. Yes, like sitting there like being like a zombie for 20 hours is not a great healthy thing. But I mean, in the history of things that are healthy or unhealthy for you, video games is not an unhealthy activity. So
no, that's fair. You could have been doing like speed for 22 hours, and that would have been
right.
That definitely would have been worse.
Right. So it's like, it's not like drug. And then the funny thing is like, you should be doing something healthy. I'm like, oh, like playing football, the sport that's murdered and killed like hundreds of kids over the years.
God, if you were a kid that said that to me,
how many kids had concussions and like permanent brain damage? Yeah, I should have been doing something healthy like fucking football. Which, yeah, I remember that. I remember doing that in like a research paper, and then I remember Penn and Teller's bullshit when they were brought it up, where they were like talking about like, oh, the dangers of kids playing video games, and they basically broke down the statistic of how many high school related injuries and deaths on children have come because of playing in a football league in high school, and it's like,
it's insufferable.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, wait, what? Like, like the good, healthy, I mean, shit.
Could have played soccer or joined the swim team, though.
Maybe, but like, and then but like, I was like, oh, why don't you do something? Like, I'll play another sport. Like, hey, let's play lacrosse. Oh, that'll get you fucked up too. But it's like, you can play soccer and you can easily get dehydrated. And especially out here, my mom there was even a point where my mom was like, had to like go in and like, fucking like stop. Like there were times because we'd be doing soccer practice.
I want to play this game, Mom.
At one of the parks, and it was, you know how hot it is.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Out here, it was 100 effing degrees. And they're like, and the coach would be like, oh, you take a water break before, and we'll do like one at the end of practice. My mom was just like, no, fuck. Like, there was even a point where she just stepped down, like, no, this is too hot. And I think that I remember specifically there was one time we got to practice, and then we did like a lap around one of the fields, and then my mom just went, get in the car, we're going home. And she just pulled us out of practice. Even though she was like friends with like the coaching staff or whatever, she was just like, no, fuck this is stupid. You're this because like the guy was like, well, whatever, fine, it's fine, the kids will be fine.
I mean, if you're hydrated, yes, you will be fine.
Well, and I remember specifically thinking like, I'm like, this guy is not giving us a lot of water breaks. There were times where I'd be like, we're going like, I'd even count like, we're going a half hour without having any water out in the middle
That's
of
how you
the
make a team. You suffer together. You know
I'm
what I
like,
mean?
I became very disillusioned with some of the sports stuff in high school. So I was just kind of like, no, this is bull. Like, and there was, I remember, do you remember one time? Even my mom was like, "No, this is stupid. Yeah, I'm not suffering my kid getting like dehydrated and going to the hospital so he could like fucking practice, how to kick a ball that you're not even gonna put him in or like put him in a position where he'll be doing anything anyways.
With
It's
legs
like,
like yours, you could be shooting fucking rockets. Like, what are you talking about? When you were like 12 years old, you had a man's legs. Like like your legs are hairy now. They were that hairy at 12 years old. All the testosterone went below the waist. You know, just just fucking. That's why she pulled you out. Kids were getting worried.
no, it
They're like,
was
what if he
definitely
kicks me? I'll die.
So yeah, sports to me is just kind of like, especially when it comes to like kids and minors, it's like I'm very much sort of like like this really isn't the fucking World Series, Super Bowl, World Cup, that you think it is. This is not worth getting injured and dying over, high school football. Like college maybe, but like and then NFL. I'm like, how many? That's a whole other ball of wax for how fucked up NFL players are.
Well, I'm
In
I'm
their
not a huge
post
fan
career.
of football, but sports in general. I love playing sports.
Sports
Not
should
to
be
pretend that I'm great
sports
at
should be
any of them.
fun, but like man, when you start like militaristically training people, like be to in abnormal weather conditions because the fucking like because of the sport. I
Yeah,
was
oh,
like,
yeah.
that's not. I'm like, no, that's not. It's not healthy, or nor is it fun anymore. Like whatever. Um,
Well, you have fun when you win.
but this is for practice.
I
We're not even
know.
we're not even scrimmaging.
I know,
Just
but then you get that win later on. Ooh,
when later on what? Like
ooh,
days later, a week later? That's
yeah.
stupid.
Delayed gratification, man. You worked harder. You got that win.
Seriously,
You get to teabag somebody.
some of the practice, some of the way this shit is done is fucking idiotic. Um,
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily the smartest guys that are becoming coaches. To be fair, it's up until what, like 10 years ago, you could literally just walk into school and be like, "Well, I can coach some football."
throw some ball here. So
There was this coach in my high school who got famous because he ran the football team until they threw up. And when one of the guys threw up, he bent down, picked out a little piece of hot dog, threw it in his mouth, chewed it, and said, "Ooh, hot dog, keep fucking running." That guy, I don't think he lasted that long, but he was a psychopath.
yep, exactly,
But he
exactly.
had a degree in history, so perfect guy for teaching your kids the lovely sport of football.
People get off on some of this shit too. It's like, yeah, we're gonna be a fucking Spartan, and I'm like, you're gonna die before you're 40. Like what?
Yeah, yeah,
Fuck.
chicks dig scars and all that thing. You know.
That's like great plan there, buddy. Um,
I'm just noticing that all of your favorite games, by the way, that you were telling me about, are like in 64 or earlier.
yeah, and that's gonna continue.
And that's just gonna keep going. We're gonna pick it up from there.
Because the year after the Nomad, and we ran the N64, I decided I wanted an N64.
Gotta have it.
So that followed into the next year of saving up allowance to buy an N64. But I was able to earn more money because again I had started landscaping for neighbors and shit.
Yeah, started working in the coal mines.
Right. So and I was earning way more than I was for the Nomad. So what I was able to do was in the it was either no, it had to have been early '98. I bought a copy of Diddy Kong Racing before I had the system, and I had to wait months for the system, right?
You were just like, I'm gonna save this.
And there were friends on the block that had N64, so we would play it there at their house.
Oh hell
And I
yeah.
could and I continued to save it. So it wasn't like I didn't get to play it at all. I actually did get to play quite a bit. And then Banjo-Kazooie came out June 30th, July 1st, depending where you were, 1998. And then I'm like, I'm buying this with my system. And I had saved up all the money for it. So yeah, I went and I think where did I buy my N64 was either Toys R Us or Best Buy.
You know it was Toys R Us. Because I don't think I think it had to be Toys R Us. Toys R Us was like
the Best Buy was around, but like it might have been the Diddy Kong definitely got bought from Toys R Us.
I don't think Best Buy carried a lot of video games until like
they did
early 2000s.
Oh, they did. Best Buy is where I first played Mario 64.
Really? I got everything from KB Toys and Toys R Us until I want to say like the early 2000s. Then you started seeing games like everywhere.
Yeah. Well, either way, I bought an N64 with Banjo-Kazooie. It was saved up for a whole year, and then the addiction was back, in full swing. Of course, I didn't play for 22 hours or anything, but like, that was a great birthday, great time. I very specifically remember that. Just you have Banjo-Kazooie and Diddy Kong Racing, and you got your own N64 now, and things are fucking great. And yeah, I don't remember when, but like it was my brother had like started, he had started working and he bought his own. He decided he wanted a PlayStation at that point, and
yeah, because it's the cool guy system.
Well, he had become like, and then he got really addicted to like Final Fantasy VII. And then 8, so he became like the recluse, like he was just the guy sitting in his room alone with his fantasy Kevin. So he was literally the stereotype that was in like Yamauchi's head. I would say R.I.P., but the guy was kind of a bastard, but he was the stereotype,
real piece of shit.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was good. He was really good at his job, but he was definitely one of those like Japanese, business demons, cutthroat, CEOs from that era. Anyways, like because people were like, how the fuck did you let Square go from being a Nintendo? And he's like, all right, we don't need RPGs. And like, what are you talking about? Like Japan was like, we're all about RPGs. Like RPGs are for losers who sit in dark rooms and don't socialize or talk to anyone.
Well,
that's literally what he said.
He's not wrong, I guess.
So like my brother was kind of like living proof of this, because like he bought the PlayStation and he was just sit in his room and just play Final Fantasy in darkness and silence. And I was like, all the neighborhood kids coming over, I'm like, let's get Diddy Kong going. We didn't really play a lot of GoldenEye, but someone would have GoldenEye, like we're playing GoldenEye, we're playing Mario Kart, we're playing all these multiplayer games. So that was going on, there. My brother tried to like cause a mini insurrection though, where he got some people onto his side on PlayStation, because there were definitely advantages to the PlayStation for sure. To the point where my mom even had to say, my mom like came into my room during like a heated argument between us, and she's like, just shut up. Like
nobody
no
cares
one is allowed
about this shit.
She's like, no one is allowed to talk about the other system any longer.
The amount of times that we had arguments over, because my brother was a Nintendo Power subscriber and I was a PSM subscriber, and the amount of arguments that almost came to blows over that shit. God. And then you think back now and you're like, I was absolutely right. Fuck that noise. I should have fought him. No, I'm kidding. It was silly. We were children. But I should have kicked his ass.
I mean, at the end of the day, both are great systems. I think there was a really good argument that was made years ago when it was still a thing, before it just imploded, and before nothing but cops and cheaters reruns on XPlay. And yeah, Adam Sessler, someone had brought in, I think it was on like Attack of the Show or something, like Kevin Pereira was kind of like, I think they're kind of like insinuating like the N64 was like this huge failure or whatever. Actually, no, the insinuation was like, what system had the most was the most influential? What was the most influential game system of all time? And Adam Sessler said it might be the N64. And Kevin Rare was like, "Oh, come on, the PlayStation was, oh, so much, so many more games." And he's like, "Yes, but think about this: Mario 64, GoldenEye, and Ocarina of Time. Those three games alone basically defined game development, since then." And he had a really good point where it was like, the N64 had many problems, but it absolutely was showing the way. Now, a lot of people say, well, other games kind of did what N64 was doing before Nintendo did it. And that kind of leads into an interesting argument of whether, like, okay, are you truly the first? Does the Trailblazer go to the first person to do it, or does it go to the person who does it and then it does it best, but then everyone copies? So what I'm kind of getting at here is that, like, okay, Mega Man Legends came out and it had a lock on, and that came out before Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time came out and had this revolutionary lock-on technology, and everyone was enamored and like, oh my god, wow. And then lock-on became a industry standard, and people would argue, well, Mega Man Legends did it. Well, I'm like, here's the thing though, nobody fucking played Mega Man Legends, which is a harsh truth, to this day. And it's Ocarina of Time that takes all the credit. Now here's the thing: Ocarina of Time developers absolutely did not steal that from Mega Man. They because again, the games came out pretty close together. They were basically in development at the same time. It's just two people came up with the idea relatively within the same time frame. One came out first, but then the other person came out second, was the one that got all the credit, and people noticed it. So the thing, like, so like, what do we credit Mega Man Legends for inventing lock-on because it came out first, or is it Ocarina of Time because it's the one everyone copied from that game and that game's version of it and that game's style of it? So yeah, real interesting argument there. But anyways, like, the point is like GoldenEye is another one where it's like, GoldenEye revolutionized first-person shooters on consoles. It was not the first-person shooter on video game consoles. Hell, Turok came out way before it. You had Doom on Super NES and a bunch of other things, right. But it's like, GoldenEye is kind of what's responsible for blossoming the first-person shooter genre on consoles.
I mean, especially the multiplayer aspect of it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, like that is a real thing where it's like, that it was a real trailblazer of a game. The stuff it was doing was not technically the first time anyone had tried anything like that, but it is the one that laid the groundwork and set the precedent. Same with Mario 64. It wasn't the first game to have 3D graphics or full 3D movement, but it's the game that showed people how games should control and handle in 3D.
It kind of had slippery. I think it was mostly the joystick, but
and I was going to say, like, it's really a lot down to the analog movement, which, if you remember, a lot of games really didn't have before Mario 64. They would have like grid-based movement where, like, Tomb Raider, she would like step forward like one space at a time, or
right,
left strafe, really really shitty clunky movement like that. So it was like Mario 64 was like kind of like, this is how games should control in 3D kind of thing. So yeah, N64 was it's not the greatest system that Nintendo ever made, but it might be the most influential system of all time. It might actually be.
One really interesting thing about the N64 versus the PlayStation 2, for instance, the argument that I had, like, we had gotten into this argument about it, and it was originally about the PlayStation, but especially once the PlayStation 2 came out, which I realized that they wouldn't have been apples to apples comparison, but especially once the PS2 came out and, you're comparing it to, say, the GameCube, Nintendo made everything look like toys, and so PlayStation made everything look like serious business. Like, it looked like PlayStation systems weren't designed to look like a toy, whereas Nintendo very much designed their systems for the longest time. I mean, you could even argue to this day to look like a toy.
There was a great interview. I forget what magazine it was, like, might have been. I'm not even going to try to pretend I know which one it was. Might have been Next Gen. I'm thinking it was Next Gen, but there was a great
something
interview
that doesn't exist anymore.
Right, like with Nintendo of America, and I couldn't believe they were saying it out loud. And granted, this was coming from NOA side, not necessarily NCL, but they were saying like we think one of the problems with the GameCube was that it was the color and the design, and they say like Japan was like it's purple, it's royalty, and like that didn't translate well at all in North America. And they said honestly, like I think a lot of people looked at our console and said it looked too much like a lunchbox. It's like I think the design of our hardware might be like a hurdle we put on ourselves where we designed it to look too much like it's a child's plaything, or it's like that it's not necessarily cutting edge. We
Well,
made in like
the Wii definitely proved that, right? Because the Wii
yeah,
is the first time they designed something that I would argue
right,
that the Wii is pretty.
yeah, and their whole thing with the Wii was like they basically just
Mac.
decided to like hump Apple. Yeah,
Yeah, they just robbed Mac. Well, you remember the GameCube, right? The Panasonic
yeah, yeah,
GameCube.
yeah.
Every time people would come into the game store that our buddy worked at, every time they'd come in, they'd see that on the counter and be like, "Oh my God, what is that? That's the most amazing looking system. It looks so cool." And then you're like, "Oh, it's a GameCube," and people be like, "Oh, oh." Because it looked legit. If GameCubes looked like that, granted it was a higher end, but
It's so bizarre because I play DVDs, and it's like it's so bizarre that Panasonic didn't opted out of releasing the Q outside of Japan. And for the life of me, I don't know fucking why they did that. And I don't know why Nintendo didn't push harder for it, right? Because I'm like, if that was their day one, right? Like, it would have cost $100 more. I honestly, I think Nintendo missed the fucking boat there, where they're like, we're offering value, people don't care. If you had, because like if I remember right, it was about $300 for a PS3 and an Xbox, and about $200 for a GameCube on launch. If you had day and date $300 Panasonic Qs alongside the $200 non-DVD playing GameCube, I would actually argue the GameCube would have had more success, and I think you actually would have sold a lot of Panasonic Qs.
Well, wasn't there a thing where like the Qs had S video or something like that versus
they had some extra output stuff on the back.
and everyone
yes.
else at the time didn't have that updated. For the longest time, they didn't have that updated like cable. So I don't know. It made things smoother, right? There was like no aliasing.
It had an S video thing, and then I think it also had like independent audio jacks for channels.
Right. Yeah.
So again, it was such a bizarre thing that like it did exist. And it was really cool looking, and anyone in America who actually saw the damn thing actually really liked the damn thing. Yeah. And they didn't release it out here. Like Nintendo's prerogative. Like Nintendo was so sure, and they're like, we're gonna offer like high quality for much cheaper, and I'm like, it didn't fucking work. And to go back into another tangent here, like Nintendo really fucked themselves really hard. Like they basically bent over and fisted their own ass at Space World 2000 when
Long
they had their
before OnlyFans, when they could have made a profit on fisting their own ass.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go back to it, and because more news has come out recently, where they had Space World 2000, where they were showing the first, Space World 2001, which was right before the system came out. Because Space World 2000, where they had a lot of FMVs and tech demos, and people were kind of jazzed, right? Mm-hmm. And then Space World 2001 rolled around, and that's where they showed footage, actual in-game footage of like Mario Sunshine and Wind Waker, which didn't have a name yet. And Wind Waker, combined with like just like a year later selling of Rare, it was like double whammy. Wind Waker, I think, hurt Nintendo's image extremely badly.
Just because of the art style, really? You think
it had a snowballing effect, because people kind of like, what are they doing with Zelda? So now people were like upset that Zelda, which had a realistic looking style, and the news that came out recently was apparently that Miyamoto actually cringed the first time he saw cel shaded Wind Waker.
Ooh.
And he was actually he was against it, and Anuma had to like basically talk him into it. And then the game came out and it sold well under expectations, and it didn't do very well at all. And then Enuma, and people will be like, yes, it did, fuck you. Like, okay, how about the Game Developers Conference years later where Enuma literally flat out said, why isn't Wind Waker selling? Why are we not hitting Ocarina numbers? And Nintendo America had to tell him flat out, it's the look. People are not going to buy the game. Like, you kept saying if people just try it, they'll understand. People aren't trying it.
Yeah, they're not going to
They
try
are
it.
they are turned away at the gate. They're not
Rough.
fucking putting $50 down. And he says, and that is why Twilight Princess existed, because I went out, and he flat out said, I was asking around, why can't we get this game to sell? And people were like, people are not getting over the way this game looks. It's a battle you can't win. And then Twilight Princess came out, and it sold like it was at the time the best-selling Zelda game of all time. So eat a fucking dick. All the haters of Twilight Princess and all the defenders of Wind Waker, eat a dick. Like, this game hurt Nintendo. It hurt them because it was right before the system was coming out, and it looked like this. And this is what they were doing to Zelda, and there was no footage of Perfect Dark, zero. There was Rare was kind of up in the air, and then eventually Rare got sold. Like, their entire they tripled down hard on this child's toy mentality look on the system, on the hardware, on the games, on the software, and it was a snowball effect. Right, it was just this constant snowball effect, and then Halo came out, and Halo was actually really good. Wasn't looking good till it came out, but on launch day, Halo came out, and I was like, "This is really, really good." And then Grand Theft Auto came out, and it was not on GameCube, and then it was just this constant snowballing effect where, like, you hurt yourself because you drove away. Like, people don't fucking get younger; they get older, and frankly, you get.
Sounds like a problem across all of Japanese civilization currently, maybe.
Well, it's like, look, people mature, and then sometimes people immature before they actually get over it. So, like, you have an audience of teenagers that they heavily courted on the N64. If you remember, N64 advertising was heavily going after edgy teenage crowds. Get in or get out, play it loud. They had Turok and GoldenEye and Perfect Dark and Conqueror's Bad not really. It was so late, but the point is like, they courted the teenage audience hard, and teenagers are dumb, and they're not going to look past just the character design of a game. So when these teenagers are becoming young adults, and you're doubling down on a game that looks like Dora the fucking Explorer, that used to look like your D&D monster manual, now goes into Dora the Explorer. Yes, you fucking lost them. you lost them, and you hurt your brand and your image, like, heavily because of it. Like, and at the end of the day, what I'm saying is, am I saying Wind Waker is a bad game? No, but Wind Waker fucking hurt Nintendo. Like, that whole space world showcase, and when all that images and all those shit came out online and in print magazines, people were not fucking having it.
So that's why all of your favorites and good memories end at the N64?
Well, no, not necessarily, but it's just, going on this tangent, it's like, everything about Nintendo's image during the GameCube was not great.
No, they definitely screwed up GameCube.
They did, and until the Wii U, it was their worst selling console ever. It sold worse than the N64. You might say the library is way better, and that's arguably true, but it sold worse than the GameCube, or than the N64. It was their worst selling console at the time. They missed the fucking boat on the GameCube.
I would argue that the GameCube is the only system, like mainline system ever, that was built to be portable. Like, you could take it with you everywhere.
Like, take it with a handle.
Yeah.
So
its controllers were built to be compact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was just like,
it's a great system, and I love the system, and I love the games on it. But, like, they made a lot of really bad decisions early on with the system that hurt it in the long run, and they repeated mistakes again on the Wii U. Even worse, arguably. Well, not really arguably what they did.
The Wii U never, I don't know. The Wii U never really met its stride. Had a lot of great ideas, and then just...
There's a very recent interview, like, this week with Reggie about it. Someone asked him, they're like, we remember that you said, like, there would be opportunities to play Wii U games with 2 gamepads. And they're like, what happened to that? And he says, like, was like we was like there were prototypes and there were things that they were thinking of, but here's Reggie's like said flat out, we never got an audience. There was never enough people who bought the Wii U to justify making games that used, multiplayer games that could use two gamepads at once. This is like it was something that could have been done, but he's like, the system never sold. He just flat out said it. Like
It's
system,
like no one ever wanted it. Huh?
whatever. And he's like, and that's why it had such a short life. We had to. He's like, and he also said flat out, like, yeah, it was bad and it was never recovering. So we cut our losses really early on the Wii U and immediately started going into the next system because it's like this is not like it was one of those like this isn't coming back. this thing is in the abyss and it is not crawling out. So,
So to bring it back to your birthday list, by the way, I noticed on here, you've got ones that I really understand. Tiny Toons, that makes sense. We played the shit out of that in Saturday morning cartoon streams. Sonic 3 Genesis, again, makes total sense.
That was just because it has like a funny story that goes along with it, where like I asked for that as a gift from my, because it was at a Kmart. I remember what a Kmart is.
Yeah,
and
they're gone.
I was really bugging for it, and I was like, I even offered. I was like, can I save up my mom? I was like, no, I'm gonna get you this as a gift because my mom because it was a greatest values version, so it was like $20.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me just save up and buy it. And my mom was like, no, I'm getting you this as a gift. You're gonna have to win. Like, and there was a point where we went back to the Kmart, and I looked at like the behind the glass case, and I'm like, Mom, they're selling out. And part of me was like, she fucking bought it. I know she did. Because there was one missing, and my mom was like, well, we'll just have to see. And my mom was tried to play it off and play dumb, and I'm like, I know you fucking bought this. I know you did. And I remember
Sonic 3 at home.
And then like I remember unwrapping it, and then like going like, I knew you bought this. And she was like, well, she's like, well, I'm trying to be discreet, and you're like, but you had to like. You had to like psychoanalyze every game section every time we went to a store. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's nuts. I remember I was really, really good. I still am really good at guessing gifts. And this one Christmas,
my mom hates that about me.
Yeah. Oh, well, I did it once and it made my mom cry because I ruined her favorite part of Christmas. Which is like watching us be surprised by things. And I just like casually said what a gift was as I walked by, and it really like messed. So I just quit. I don't try to figure it out. I don't look at it. I don't give a fuck anymore. My mom was so upset that I did, and I was just like, nope, I'm not bumming her out anymore. I'm good.
I'd be like, I'd grab the gift and hold it, and like I'd feel and be like, it's this. And she's like, how do you know? I don't know. See, my mom she was definitely upset, but she was more angry and kind of like, she wouldn't say it, but she was probably a little bit impressed. But she was also like, this is no fun. The fun of a gift is unwrapping it, and you just take that away. You take that joy away. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of my thing, I guess.
Like, you should have named him Debbie. But the one that the last one on your list here basically is an ending, and I know we've talked about this before, but Harvest Moon 64.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last episode, but it was like
just because it was your grandpa that got it for you, or
it was my grandpa that got it. My grandpa were because I had them, and like I'm looking back at it, and I'm like, I don't think it was allowance money. I'm pretty sure it was birthday money that I had, and we were at the Target. And I was like, oh, this looks, I kind of want this. I think I'd read about it in Nintendo Power. And I had read about some of the stuff.
Brainwashed. Like, no. It's propaganda.
Well, the thing was, I was getting this is going to sound blasphemous, but I was getting a little tired of all the Scrimblow Bimblos on N64. And I was getting a little annoyed that there was nothing like meaty as far as like RPG like on the N64. And I wanted a game that was going to last a while, and it was going to have a little more. It was going to have more intricate game systems, and here's the weirdest thing. You're probably going to think this is weird. I wanted a game with text, like, because like N64 games were so devoid of having like text and options and things to do. Like it was just like text in general. Like like they would like they'd have like really basic fonts, like big blue, bubbly fonts, and it was
Right,
always like
yeah.
get the most basic info out to you as possible, and like everything was just devoid of like character dialogue on the N64 because
Yeah,
there were no
you wanted to
RPGs.
take care of your animals, read a bunch of
I just
text,
wanted,
and
yeah,
listen
I
to.
wanted a game that was going to have a little more sustenance to like its sort of text and world than all the scrimblow bimblow shit I was playing, the tonic troubles and chameleon twists and
Jet
you know
Force
I'd
Geminis.
play in Bomberman Heroes and I played and beaten all these games and I still love them, but it's like and again I'm almost getting it's almost getting this weird thing because like platformers are my favorite game, but holy shit, some of you scrimblow bimblow fans are like, you're getting a real fucking loud and annoying on online. Just pointing that out there. Like,
And so you wanted to play the farmer simulation.
so yeah, I was like, it was the closest thing. Well, it was the closest thing the N64 had to like an actual RPG,
You wanted to
right?
find love in a small town.
Sure. So yeah, and I saw this like, oh, and I was just shy of having enough money for it. And I was kind of like a little like, oh, that's kind of bum, whatever. And then Grandpa, shows up behind me. Well, how much is it? And I'm like, what? And they're like, I'll get it for you. And I was like, what? No way.
Yeah.
And I remember like excitedly telling him updates on my farm that weekend when we were playing it at his house. And he probably didn't. I'm telling him like harvest stuff, so it's like he knows what I'm saying when I'm talking about like growing this or growing that or whatever, or raising a cow or whatever. Like he can grasp that concept. But I think it was just kind of like I don't know what I don't know what's going on in that video game, but it's like I'm happy he's happy kind of thing.
It's not violence. That's a win.
That's true. And every so often he would kind of come in and be like, "So how does this stuff work?" And I remember trying to explain to him. I'm kind of like when you I'm like, "Well, can you turn it off?" It basically like it's like it rewound because he was asking like, "Well, what happens if you stop playing the game after you get to a certain point, like in a Mario game?" And I'm like, "Well, when you turn the power off, it's basically like it auto rewinds back to the beginning." Safe states in old Mario games, right? I remember trying to explain, and he got it. He wasn't confused, but he was like, "Oh, okay." She's like, so you gotta like do whatever. Like he actually probably would have really enjoyed RPGs if they were like around in a bigger thing during at least when we were playing games and I wasn't just playing nothing but scrimblow bimblow shit. Maybe if I was playing Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy, he might have actually been enamored with it. But
My
nope.
grandfather doesn't give a shit. So yeah, he did not give a shit about games at all.
Well, everyone's entitled to two, right? But like there was one grandfather who really just he didn't give a couldn't care less about what was going on, with me and video games. And the other one was kind of like, so he's like, what is Matt like? Like, what is he into? Like genuinely interested, right? So
does he love the bitches?
No.
Is he into the bitches?
Oh my god, I actually worried about that. Where I was like, getting like high school and then young adulthood, and I don't think I had to, but I was like, kind of like, God, I've never like, my brother was such a horn dog, and I was kind of like not bringing home the girlfriends to me. I was almost wondering, like, are my parents gonna think I'm gay or something? Like, and I kind of like, I was like, man, I hope my grandparents. Well, again, different time, different place. Grew up in a very red state ass household, where I was like, I hope my grandparents don't think I'm gay or something. Like, as a human being now, I'd be like, I don't care. Like, that's totally cool. That's not a worry or whatever. Like, but when you grow up when you grow up and drinking the Kool-Aid. At the time, you kind of like, oh God, wood, and I'm like, nah. My grandfather probably would be like, oh, okay. And my
total aside, but on that subject, think about even just 10 years ago, explaining to like a Gen Z teenager, like who's I don't know, stereotypical out, has blue hair, whatever. Like the idea of like in high school being an out gay kid, like, fuck. In California,
oh yeah,
like in the
it's funny
in the
because
heart of liberal.
my grandfather would probably be like, as long as he's safe and happy, and then the grandma would be like, no, he needs to find Jesus immediately.
Well, I'm looking for him in this cave, but all I keep getting is poop dick.
It's like okay, it's like my family tree would have been like, one would be like, well, as long as he's okay and happy, and I hope, and then the one would be like, no, we must take him to church immediately, and then one would just be like, I'm not speaking to that F word, then the last ground was just like, well, okay, you know, I just don't want to cause any trouble.
We're just 10 or so years out from that being
Yeah, well,
commonplace.
I'm thinking about late '90s.
No, I know, but
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm
Like, how
saying,
would
but
this have gone down then?
it
Like,
just wasn't even that long ago that that was commonplace. Like
yeah.
it's weird to think about that for like teenagers today.
And you know what the thing is, how exhausting it kind of is with some people, and it's just kind of like my whole attitude. Like, you know, when I get to being, you know, when I get to grandpa age, it'd just be like, you know, oh, granddad, well, what if your grandkids turning okay? Be like, cool, whatever. Okay. Do you
No,
know how much easier it is to say, you know, when someone comes up and says, "Hey, you know, some if in your own family, like having a family member, your son, your daughter, whatever, come up and say, "I'm non-binary." Okay, cool.
no.
I'm gay. Okay, cool.
I
Dad,
mean, there'll be
I want to
some other.
transition. I want to transition from male to female, male to female, male. I was like, okay, that's cool. Find, you know,
There's
find
gonna
out,
be
you know,
some
find who
other
you are,
thing
you know.
though.
And to me, I'm like, wow, this is so much easier to just be like, just yeah, cool, whatever, accept it. Acceptance is so much easier than just fighting a pointless battle to me.
I liken it to that. There's gonna be some other new thing. There's gonna be some new thing that's pissing people off by then. Like it'll be commonplace by then when we're
Yeah.
like 80, and there'll be
Well,
some new.
there's two things that I
There'll
really
be a
hope I
new
don't.
Satan, is what I'm getting
Right.
at.
Right. Like the two things I hope is like, you know, is A, I don't fall into like, oh, they're into that you know, newfangled witchcraftery or whatever, right? And the other thing is I hope I pray to God I am not as technologically defective
Oh man, today I
as
had
my
to.
parents as my parents are when I reach their age. That is, I pray to whatever.
Let's
Please don't let me be as don't let me be as like completely inept at technology.
Have you ever explained to a boomer how to get a screenshot on their smartphone? All right.
Well, even I forget because it's usually like hold down this and that, and then like
Yeah.
you know click. And usually for me, it's like just a very quick Google away. Like what
Well,
was
how
it?
many
Oh, it's
times
these
do I got to
buttons.
do it? You did it 10 times. You got 10 screenshots there of the same
Yeah.
screen. I want different screens. Fuck you. God damn it. Ugh. Today was it was a rough day in
Right.
boomer
So for me,
millennial.
I'm just kind of like, please, for the love of God, just let me be accepting and not technologically like, you know, just inept when I get to their age.
I'm gonna be a
Like,
crotchety old cunt.
I mean, I'm already you know, a crusty, cranky old man, right? But just please, like, you know, let me just be okay. Let me be okay with what you know, whatever games my kids play, and you know, let me please not be as
I
you
hope
know.
I'm gonna be like my 98-year-old grandfather who has one working lung and is still got more muscle on his body than I do. Just be crotchety about literally anything. Whatever you want to, I'm going to take the opposite view because I'm hard. Okay. I'm mostly just anger keeping me going at that point.
I mean, there's plenty of things to be angry about, but like, you know, someone's personal, you know, gender identity or you know, the next iPhone having a new type of touchscreen. These are not things worth being angry about,
Oh,
right?
sure.
Like these are not
Tell you
things
what, something is
worth
worth being angry about.
any amount of anger at all. Like they're just not like come on, like where we live, it's like I should be angry about, you know, if I'm going to have water in 10 years. That's something to be concerned about.
We're not.
Greenland melting is something to be concerned about, you know, right?
Oh no, we're gonna make
Like,
so much money off of Greenland melting. There's so much like natural resources there that we're just gonna mine the shit out of. Are you kidding me?
yeah, but if Greenland melts, do you know how much of the Earth's coastlines are fucked?
Business will be a booming.
Well,
I don't have a beach house. I
not
don't
in
give a
my
fuck.
not in Miami, it won't.
Fuck Miami.
Well, you know, if Greenland melts, the entire like much of Central Valley floods. Did you know that?
That's, I mean, that'll be good. There'll be water in Central Valley.
Oh, there is water. They
I
flood it all
believe,
the time.
I believe in being
They
relentlessly positive.
well, I mean, they flood Central Valley kind of daily in a way.
Yeah, that's one of the
Um,
real problems we have here.
Yeah, but I mean, like actually flooded.
What's
Which
that?
to me, I'm like, that's fucking crazy. I watched a video documentary about that last night. I was like, wow, like a Central Valley flood, like just like it's not good.
It is.
Like
It is not good. I wanted to end this on a high note about Harvest Moon, and we really took it. We took a fucking turn.
we're gonna harvest Greenland.
Yeah, it'll be Harvest Moon. It'll just be Greenland. That's why we tried to buy it in 2018 or whatever the fuck.
Oh God, I remember that.
And
Well,
everybody
you know
was
what
like,
the
"He's
funny
an
thing?
idiot." I was like, "Actually,
Well, what is it? I think it's like Denmark that owns it,
yes."
and it's like bigger than most of all of Europe. Like it's like the size of Europe.
Yeah,
And
but
they're
there's
this tiny.
50,000 people living on it.
There's 56,000 people that live there. Yeah, it's funny. Like Denmark owns a piece of land that's bigger than their pretty much almost as big as their continent that they live on and share with 40 other nations.
Yeah.
Just kind of funny the way that works.
Yeah, well, they're playing the long game. Is when climate change really hits, they're going to move to Greenland because it'll be all lush, fertile, Arctic land.
How weird would that be? Like if it all of a sudden turns into like, oh, it's like this beautiful rainforest.
I hope I'm dead. I hope I'm dead by then.
You sounded like Kermit a bit there. Yeah, hope I'm dead.
I hope I'm dead. Also,
when that happens.
No, let's end it on a high note. Did you see that video of Jordan Peterson saying, we'll see who cancels who?
I've kind of seen this a bit, and I'm like, what is this about? Where did this come from?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. But somebody once commented on one of our videos that I sound like Kermit the Frog and Jordan Peterson had a baby. And until I saw that video, I wasn't really sure how to feel. But now I know I should feel very insulted, and I do. So, point one to that person. On that note, we got patrons to thank. Any final thoughts? You wanna correct them? You want to say that I actually have a sultry voice in person? And no, nothing.
Well, I mean, but
Oh yeah,
no. Well,
don't let the support pour forth.
I was just thinking about how after it was during when that Banjo-Kazooie, it was actually right before Banjo-Kazooie, the year before. So when I got the Nomad, I remember there was this kibosh on gifts, and my mom said flat out, I am no longer going to buy you any video games as gifts. If you want a video game, you will have to buy it with your own money. So that's why I don't have a lot of gifts actually listed,
What did you do? Why did
I bought games with my own money?
No, why did you? Why did she suddenly decide you're not getting video games?
She thought I was going to become again. She thought if I played Zelda, I'd grow up to become a fucking
Satanist.
warlock.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. So
well,
she was always sort of
Jesus Christ
for a long fucking time. She was always like concerned that gaming was bad, and she was no. It's funny to hear her now and be like, I don't know what I was thinking.
Well, yeah, because everyone's afraid of the new thing.
Yeah, like now my mom's like, man, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm so glad you got into this shit and not any of the other crazy shit that's out there. And I'm like, thank you.
Well, I mean, think about this. People were concerned about video games, but everybody just let us be on the internet. And we are super fucked up because of it.
Oh, man, if she had any idea how much worse.
Oh, my God. Just terrible.
How much worse it was letting me buy my own computer in 2000.
Idiot.
How much more damaging and corrupting.
But thank God she stopped buying you video games.
Thank God stop. Oh yeah, we you made it. Well, she didn't say I couldn't have video games. She just said I'm no longer going to be responsible. For this. For it was more just
your
kind of
AOL account. And...
Yeah, no, she didn't actually.
Well,
it was very much like she was pulling to keep it in line with the mentality. She Pontius Pilated.
She washed her hands of you.
She washed her hand of contributing to video games.
That is hilarious.
The give us Barabbas moment was right at the N64 saying, you want it, you get it. I'll have no part of it.
Yeah, did she hold up like an N64 game in one hand and a Holy Bible in the other, and she was like, which do you choose? And you scream for Barabbas?
There was I feel like there was probably a moment similar to something like that. Where it's just like I now remember there was a
Very
time where
biblical.
like she did something where there was something regarding like her taking my brother to go buy a Final Fantasy game or some shit, and I was like, and I was kind of like calling her out. I'm like, Mom, like you what is going on here? What's all this like, double standards? Like, well, I didn't say, like, you know what I see. She swear to God, this is a real fucking thing she said. She's so embarrassed about it today, where she's like, I see your brother, on his own time in his room reading his Bible. I don't ever see you, just taking time to read the Bible out like he does. So she was like, I think, so she was literally like bending her resistance to gaming a bit, because my brother she saw him reading the Bible more, and reading the Bible on his own time, and she didn't ever see me going out of my way to read the Bible, kind of thing.
Yeah, you weren't just walking around the house in your smoking jacket reading some Bible and saying, "Oh, Mother, did you read your Bible today?" Would you
Mother, did you ever know there was this time in the Bible where this woman got raped to death by a gang of hooligans? Did you ever read about that?
Yeah, it's good Bible times.
Shall I extol to you about the time when Noah, or when Noah's stepdaughters slept with him to repopulate the earth, so they had to resort to incest?
Sure weren't stepdaughters.
Or how about the time? Where like they got their father drunk and roofing? Well, basically roofing them. Like, that's in the Bible. It's good. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, that's what your brother was reading. And
My brother was reading Song of Psalms, and if you're a Christian, you know what that means.
I'm Catholic, so really all I got is guilt.
So you're not allowed to read the Bible.
No, we read the Bible all the time.
Well, I know that's because of Pope John Paul II, who opened that up. Like,
y'all
getting in this, but I get that's an old Protestant versus Catholic thing where it's like, you guys are not even allowed to read the Bible. Blah, 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 blah. The song, okay, so I need to explain this joke because I know so many people are going to be like fucking lost. Song of Psalms is a book of the Bible that is a love letter written by King David to his one of his future wives, where he basically it was a love note, it was a love poet, love song, if you will.
Girl, and I get down on that so hard.
It was based, yeah,
Christ.
and he talks about like her voluptuous body. He compares her body to like a palm tree, and her tits to coconuts and stuff like that, and. Yes, this is in the Bible. Like people are so full. People are so full of shit when they think like,
girl,
we need to cleanse and be morally secure and have kids reading the Bible. And like, do you know what's fucking in there? Like,
get down, but leave room for God.
Read Song of Psalms. It basically reads like ye olden, but like it reads like the most medieval version of a fucking Penthouse or Hustler. Like magazine description or something. So
it was his version of the thong song.
Oh, and I guarantee you, my brother. Actually, I know my brother's reading that. Hell, he'd even like gleefully point shit like that out to me. And I'm like, well, don't bring this up at Bible study, Bill.
Bro, they're talking about titties. I'm a jerk off to this and scuttle away. On that note,
I hate how that's not even fiction.
On that note, now that we've ended it on 5 Bibles Wholesome, we've got patrons to thank. If you're interested in becoming a patron at any level, please check out patreon.com/YoVideogames podcast. Dude of the week was Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. And our producers for this episode are The Arnett, Screwnami, Kuroi35, HyperViper89, Ziggy Z, and Online Persona. Thank you, dudes, and we will catch you next time.
Later, dudes.